picture this scenario because, well, I guarantee you have lived it. You are walking through your house, right?
Hmm.
You have a very specific urgent mission.
Oh, I know exactly where this is going.
You stride confidently into the kitchen, you stop dead in the middle of the room, and nothing. The thought is entirely gone. You just stare at the refrigerator completely blank, wondering why you just walked in there.
It is so frustrating.
It really is. Or consider it an even more socially painful situation. You are at a networking event. Someone walks up to you, smiles warmly, shakes your hand, and says, "Hi, I'm David."
And then the panic sets in.
Literally 5 seconds pass. You smile back, you ask how their evening is going, and suddenly a cold, paralyzing panic just washes over you. Their name has completely vanished. It is as if they never even spoke it.
Right. It is the most universal, frustrating human experience. And when that happens, our immediate internal dialogue is usually deeply critical. We tell ourselves, I have a terrible memory, I'm getting old, my brain is broken.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think.
But the biological reality is entirely different. Your brain is not broken. The hardware, meaning the sheer processing power of your neurons, is perfectly fine.
Okay, so if the hardware is fine, what's the issue?
It is the software. The specific operating system you are using to encode and retrieve information is just, well, it's completely mismatched to how human biology actually functions.
That is so interesting. I used to think of human memory like a video camera, just passively recording a feed of everything happening around me.
Yeah.
But when I can't remember a name, 5 seconds later, it becomes obvious that the camera theory is totally wrong.
Exactly. It's fundamentally flawed.
And that is exactly what we're dissecting today. Welcome to Everyday English Flow. This is your daily English practice for natural speaking and effortless listening flow.
Precisely. Today, we have a highly specific dual mission for you. We are going to share with you a comprehensive, scientifically grounded system to transform your memory.
A complete overhaul of that software you mentioned.
Exactly. We will provide a specific number of transformational steps, a complete architectural blueprint for your mind, so you never lose a crucial piece of information again. And simultaneously, we are immersing you in C1 level English.
So you get brain hacks and language mastery all at once.
Right. By exploring mechanics of the mind, you are going to absorb high-level vocabulary, idioms, and natural conversational phrasing.
And just to keep you guessing, we aren't going to reveal the exact number of steps in this system until the very end. But I will tell you this, there's a very special bonus trick waiting for you at the conclusion of our deep dive.
Oh, the fake emotion trick. That one is incredible.
It is a psychological manipulation that top memory champions rely on when they're forced to learn something that is aggressively, painfully boring. So you will absolutely want to stick around for that.
And we should set expectations right now. This will not be a dry reading of textbook definitions.
No, not at all.
We are going to examine the physical mechanisms of the brain, challenge common assumptions, and build some very vivid, sometimes bizarre mental imagery that you can apply immediately.
Let's jump right in. Let's start at the absolute foundation. If my brain isn't a video camera, what is it? I mean, before we figure out how to remember, we have to look at why we drop information so easily.
The most prevalent mistake we make is misunderstanding the architecture of the storage system itself. It is believed by cognitive psychologists that you should view your memory not as a camera, but as a massive, constantly active library.
Okay, a library, I can picture that.
When you encounter new information, like a new person's name, a historical date, or a complex English phrasal verb, it is like a delivery driver handing you a single, unbound book.
So I'm standing in the lobby of this mental library with a new book in my hands. The problem, I'm guessing, is what I do next.
Exactly. If you just toss that book randomly onto the floor of the hallway, it's virtually gone. You didn't label it, you didn't connect it to a category, and you certainly didn't place it on a specific shelf.
Right, just get lost in the mess.
Because the library is incredibly noisy, it's filled with thousands of other sensory inputs arriving every single minute, your brain has two distinct holding areas. Short-term memory, which operates like a small, highly limited whiteboard in that lobby, and long-term memory, which is the permanent, infinite archive.
I see. So when David introduces himself at the party, I'm writing David on that temporary whiteboard. But what exactly makes the whiteboard so unreliable? Why doesn't the ink just stay there?
Because working memory, that whiteboard is metabolically expensive for the brain to maintain.
Meaning it burns physical energy.
Yes, it requires continuous neuronal firing in the prefrontal cortex. Your brain is an energy conservation machine. It does not want to burn calories holding on to David unless you prove to it that David is essential for survival or future utility.
So it's literally just being lazy to save energy.
Precisely. If you don't actively take that name and transcribe it into the permanent archive, the brain simply stops firing those neurons.
It's like someone else walking into the lobby right behind David, taking a physical erasure and just wiping out the name to make room for their own information.
That's a perfect visual.
Which actually brings up a perfect moment for our first vocabulary breakdown. I just used the phrasal verb wipe out. To wipe out means to destroy, remove, or erase something completely. It's a fantastic, versatile phrase for C1 learners.
It's used all the time in natural conversation.
Right. In nature, a massive tsunami can wipe out a coastline. In finance, a bad investment can wipe out your savings. But internally, as we are discussing, a sudden distraction can completely wipe out a fragile memory. Listener, I want you to actively practice this right now. Go to the comments and write your own original sentence using the phrasal verb wipe out.
That's a great exercise.
Apply it to your own life. Maybe talk about a time you were physically wiped out from exhaustion.
That physical act of writing it out in the comments is exactly the kind of active engagement that moves information off the temporary whiteboard.
So how do we do that in real time, say with a name like David, or let's use the name Jason?
Right. If you don't want Jason to get wiped out, you have to prove to your brain that he matters.
Okay.
You do that through association. When you hear the name Jason, you cannot just let it echo in the void. You must immediately connect it to a permanent structure already existing in your long-term library.
So I have to link it to something I already know.
Yes. You hear Jason, and you instantly think of someone famous. Say, Jason Statham, the action movie star. You look at the person standing in front of you, and you mentally dress them up like an action hero. Maybe you picture this new Jason diving out of a speeding, exploding car.
Oh, wow. So I'm taking the fragile new data and I'm super gluing it to a massive, stable piece of data my brain already possesses.
Precisely. You smile, you look him in the eye, and you repeat the name back. It is great to meet you, Jason. You focused on the data, created a vivid association, and utilized output by speaking it aloud.
And the brain recognizes that effort.
It does. It immediately moves the file to the permanent shelf.
That makes total sense, but it actually exposes a deeper issue, I think. If I am going to build that association, I have to actually be paying attention in the first place.
Which leads us to what seems like the real root of the problem.
It is a brutal biological truth. In the vast majority of cases, you do not have a memory problem. You have an attention problem.
Ouch. That hurts, but it's true.
You cannot save a computer file that you never bothered to open.
That is painfully accurate. We blame our memory when we should be blaming our focus. But why is our focus so fragmented?
Let's look at the mechanism. Your brain has a filtering system called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Every single second, your sensory organs are bombarding your brain with millions of bits of data.
Like what?
The temperature of the room, the hum of the air conditioner, the feeling of your socks on your feet, the notifications vibrating in your pocket. If your brain tried to process and remember all of it, you would experience severe cognitive overload. You would go insane.
Right, it would just be too much noise. So the RAS acts as a ruthless bouncer at the door of an exclusive club. It rejects 99% of the input. It only lets in what you consciously focus your attention on.
So if my attention is directed at my phone, the RAS is actively deleting the real world around me.
Exactly. Let's ground this in a real-world nightmare scenario. It is late at night, you are exhausted, you're getting out of a taxi cab in the pouring rain, your attention is entirely on your phone, you are texting a friend about dinner plans.
I can picture this perfectly.
You blindly hand a driver some cash, step out onto the wet pavement, and slam the door. 5 minutes later, standing in your apartment, your heart drops. You left your laptop bag in the back seat.
Oh no, the absolute worst feeling.
Your passport, your work files, everything is gone. You squeeze your eyes shut, desperately trying to remember the license plate or the taxi number. You know it was a white Toyota, but beyond that, nothing. Complete darkness.
And the terrifying part is, my eyes definitely saw the license plate. It was right in front of my face when the door closed. But because I was texting, the RAS just discarded the visual data as irrelevant garbage.
Exactly. You are engaging in a state that is crucial for advanced English learners to understand. Being physically present, but mentally absent.
Physically present, but mentally absent. That's a great phrase.
It describes a state where your physical body occupies a space, but your consciousness, your active processing power, is miles away. You looked at the taxi, but you didn't observe it. You heard the engine, but you didn't listen.
So the data never got saved.
Your brain never saved it because you never gave the bouncer permission to let the information into the club.
I see this constantly in university lectures or corporate meetings. People sit there physically present, but they are mentally absent, planning their weekend or worrying about an email. And a week later they say, I studied so hard, why don't I remember the presentation?
The reality is they never actually acquired the memory in the first place.
So how do we bypass this biological filter? How do we tell the bouncer to let it in?
The primary tool is the 5-second rule for memory. Whenever you encounter a piece of information that actually matters, like where you parked your car in a massive structure, a critical new vocabulary word, or where you set your keys down, you must give it 5 full seconds of pure, undivided attention.
Just 5 seconds. That seems almost too simple.
It is simple, but it is metabolically demanding, which is why we rarely do it. You must stop physical movement. Pause your internal monologue. Look directly at the object. Say out loud, I am parking in section 4B.
And that forces the RAS to care.
Those 5 seconds of conscious, directed focus signal the reticular activating system that this data is essential for survival. It forces the gates open.
I am absolutely going to start implementing that. Just 5 seconds of deliberate presence.
Okay, so we have established the foundational mechanics. We understand the biological imperative of attention, and we know we have to move things from the temporary whiteboard to the permanent archive.
But this raises a huge question about formatting. When I finally get the data past the bouncer, how do I package it so the brain actually wants to store it?
This is where we transition into the visual and narrative capabilities of the human mind. The secret that fundamentally shifts how you learn is this. Your brain does not think in text.
It doesn't.
No. Words, letters, and numbers are incredibly recent inventions in the timeline of human evolution. They are highly abstract, and frankly, they are profoundly boring to your biological systems.
Right. Our ancestors weren't reading books.
Exactly. But pictures, visual and spatial realities, that is what your brain evolved to track.
I know you're right, but I want to push back slightly. I feel like my internal monologue is entirely made of words. I hear myself talking to myself.
You hear the words, but let's test how you actually retrieve concepts. Let's do the elephant test. I want you and the listener at home to simply think of the concept. Elephant. What exactly materialized in your mind just now?
Instantly, I saw a massive, dusty gray animal with huge flapping ears, tusks, and a long trunk.
Precisely. You did not see the black and white text letters, ELEPHANT, floating in a sterile white void. Your brain bypassed the text entirely and instantly retrieved a vivid, three-dimensional visual image.
That's completely true.
That visual processing center in the occipital lobe is incredibly powerful. Therefore, if you are attempting to memorize a list of dry historical facts or complex English vocabulary by just staring at the letters on a page, you are fighting millions of years of evolutionary biology. You must actively translate abstract text into concrete imagery.
So if I meet a woman named Lily, I shouldn't just repeat the syllables Lily over and over in my head. I should visualize her with a massive bouquet of bright white lilies growing directly out of her scalp instead of hair.
Yes, the brain craves novelty. The weirder, the more exaggerated, and the more sensory the images, the tighter the brain will hold onto it.
Let's apply this to language learning then.
Suppose you were trying to master the English word volcano. Don't just picture a standard generic mountain from a geology textbook. Make it absurd and highly sensory. Imagine a gigantic, multi-tiered chocolate birthday cake sitting in the middle of a city.
A chocolate cake. Okay.
Suddenly, the top tier violently explodes and red-hot, boiling, liquid chocolate lava erupts hundreds of feet into the sky. You hear the deafening boom! You can literally smell the burnt sugar and hot cocoa.
That is such a visceral image. If I don't use this technique, trying to learn vocabulary just feels incredibly futile. Actually, there's a perfect idiom for that feeling. If you just stare at text, your brain is a leaky bucket.
Ah, yes, a leaky bucket.
For our listeners expanding their C1 fluency, a leaky bucket refers to a deeply flawed system or process that constantly loses whatever resources you put into it. Imagine a bucket with a dozen holes drilled into the bottom. It does not matter how fast or how aggressively you pour water into it, the water is going to drain out onto the floor.
That's a brilliant way to explain it.
When you try to memorize dry text without visual association, your mind operates exactly like a leaky bucket. The information just drips away, no matter how many hours you spend staring at the page.
That is an excellent idiom, but I would refine it even further. It is not just a bucket with a hole, it is a bucket made of mesh if you rely solely on text. We want to seal those leaks permanently.
So how do we do that?
The ultimate way to forge absolute retention is not just to create isolated, bizarre images, but to string them together. Your brain is biologically wired for narrative sequence.
You mean stories?
Yes, we survived as a species by tracking cause and effect. The rustle in the bushes caused the tiger to jump out. Bulleted lists are the sworn enemy of human memory. Stories are the biological superglue.
Okay, I have to challenge you on this point. Creating a whole narrative sounds incredibly complex. You're asking me to become a movie director in my head just to remember a grocery list. It feels like adding more cognitive load, not less.
I understand why it feels that way, but let's put it to the test.
All right, I'm going to read you a completely random list of 10 words. Let's see how this story method actually functions under pressure. Listener, I want you to see if you can remember these too. Here we go. Apple, horse, jacket, candle, ice cream, cloud, socks, chair, tree, monkey.
If you try to rote memorize those 10 words by repeating them, your working memory will buckle under the strain. They have no relationship, they're floating in an abstract void.
Right.
But watch how the brain's narrative tracking system effortlessly absorbs them when we introduce movement and emotion. Picture this vividly. You're standing in a wide, grassy field. Suddenly, a gigantic, glowing red apple drops from the sky and aggressively smacks a wild horse right on the head.
Poor horse.
The horse screams in anger, turns and gallops into a retail store where it steals a leather jacket. The horse manages to put the jacket on, but it is too dark to see, so it lights a massive flickering candle.
Okay, tracking so far. Apple, horse, jacket, candle.
The intense heat from the candle accidentally melts a giant ice cream cone the horse was holding. The melted ice cream evaporates rapidly, floating up to form a massive, sticky vanilla cloud.
Ice cream, cloud.
But instead of rain, the cloud begins to precipitate socks. Hundreds of woolen socks fall from the sky. One bright red sock drifts down and lands perfectly on the seat of a wooden chair.
Socks, chair.
The moment it touches, the chair violently takes root in the ground, its legs expanding into a massive oak tree. And swaying wildly from the upper branches of that tree is a laughing, chattering monkey.
Wow, okay, I stand completely corrected. I can literally see that entire surrealist film playing behind my eyes. The giant apple hits the horse steals the jacket, lights the candle, melts the ice cream, forms a cloud,
Yeah.
It rains socks onto a chair, the chair grows into a tree, and a monkey swings from it.
Exactly.
I didn't exert any conscious effort to memorize that sequence. It just embedded itself into my brain automatically.
What is truly fascinating is the underlying mechanism of why it embeds itself. It works because the story forces connection. Item A interacts with item B to cause item C.
Cause and effect.
Your brain's basal ganglia and prefrontal cortex are designed to track movement and causal relationships for survival. Even though the narrative is completely illogical and absurd, the structural format, cause and effect, is deeply familiar to your biology. The brain engages, and the memory sticks.
I am genuinely blown away by how effective that is. And listen, we are about 10 minutes into this deep dive, and if you are finding this everyday English flow and these cognitive strategies as mind-bending and valuable as I am, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe right now.
Highly recommended.
And I have an active challenge for you. Go down to the comments and tell us what your crazy, vivid story for that exact list of 10 words looks like. How weird can you make it? Get creative and use your English.
It is a phenomenal exercise for the imagination. Now, if we step back and view the bigger picture, we have addressed the formatting.
Yeah.
We have the bizarre picture and you have the cohesive story. But we have to face a harsh reality. How do you ensure that story doesn't slowly degrade and fade away over the next month? This brings us to the rigorous science of long-term retention.
Ah, yes. The dreaded forgetting curve. The biological mechanism that makes us forget everything we crammed the night before an exam.
Exactly. In the late 19th century, a pioneering German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus conducted rigorous experiments on human memory using meaningless syllables. He charted what is universally known as the forgetting curve.
And what did he find?
His core discovery was that learning something once is essentially fake learning. Your brain is designed to purge unused information to save metabolic energy. Learning once is like writing your name in the wet sand on a beach.
It looks perfect at first.
It looks incredibly clear and defined in that moment, but the absolute second the tide comes in, the water washes it entirely away. If you do not actively, repeatedly signal to your brain that the information is relevant, it discards it without hesitation.
That is so incredibly frustrating, but it makes evolutionary sense. So how do we hack that system? How do we turn that temporary writing in the sand into carving the information deep into a stone monument?
We utilize a scientifically proven protocol called spaced repetition. Instead of cramming, you deliberately interrupt the forgetting curve just before the memory is about to fade into obscurity.
Interrupt the curve. Got it.
Every single time you force your brain to recall the information, you trigger protein synthesis in the neurons, thickening the synaptic connections. You are physically telling your brain, do not delete this, it is a permanent feature of my environment.
Let's anchor this concept with a fantastic piece of C1 vocabulary. The word is serendipity. It is one of the most beautiful words in the English language. Serendipity means the occurrence of finding something incredibly good, valuable, or delightful completely by chance without actually looking for it.
It's a wonderful word.
It really is. It is a happy, unearned accident. Finding a crisp $20 bill tucked inside the pocket of an old winter coat is serendipity. Meeting your future spouse entirely by accident because you missed your normal train is serendipitous.
It has a wonderful etymology, too, stemming from an old Persian fairy tale. Now, if you simply hear my definition of serendipity today, Ebbinghouse's curve dictates that you will forget it by next Thursday.
Which would be tragic. So how do we fix it?
Here is the specific spaced repetition schedule to lock it into your neurobiology forever. You learn it now. You set a trigger to review it after exactly 1 hour. During that review, you do not just read it. You force yourself to recall the definition.
Okay, 1 hour.
Then you review it after 1 day. Perhaps you actively use it in an English sentence. Then 2 days later, then 4 days later, then 1 week later, then finally 2 weeks later.
So the intervals exponentially expand.
Yeah.
1 hour, 1 day, 2 days, 4 days, 1 week, 2 weeks.
Precisely. By spacing out the intervals, you allow the memory to decay just enough that it becomes slightly difficult to retrieve. That feeling of cognitive strain, that slight difficulty in pulling it back into working memory, is the exact mechanism that strengthens the neural pathway.
So the struggle is actually the point.
Exactly. You are proving to your biological systems that this word is necessary for your continued success.
I want to explore another crucial element of making things stick permanently, and you hinted at it when we made the volcano, a chocolate cake that exploded. Emotion. There is hard neuroscience behind why we remember things that make us feel something deeply, isn't there?
Absolutely, and it is perhaps the most powerful tool we possess. Deep inside the temporal lobe of your brain sits a small, almond-shaped cluster of nuclei called the amygdala.
The emotion center.
Yes, its primary function is processing intense emotions, particularly fear, joy, and aggression. When you experience a strong emotional state, the amygdala essentially floods the hippocampus with chemical signals, stamping the memory with a tag that says, "Urgent, keep this forever."
Which perfectly explains why I cannot, for the life of me, remember what I ate for lunch last Tuesday. But I can vividly, in high definition, remember the exact song that was playing on the radio when I got into a minor car accident 5 years ago.
Exactly. The brain ruthlessly deletes the mundane, but it preserves the emotional because, historically, emotional events contain lessons vital for survival.
So if we want to remember boring data, we have to fake it.
Therefore, if we want to bypass the forgetting curve, we must artificially manufacture and attach emotion to the dry data we want to learn. Consider memorizing a historical date, for example, April 15th, 1912.
Okay, just numbers right now.
If you stare at those numbers on a flashcard, it is utterly devoid of meaning. It is boring. But what occurred on that date, the RMS Titanic sank.
Right. But even then, if I just rate a bullet point that says Titanic sank on April 15, 1912, it still remains a relatively dry, abstract fact.
But watch what happens when you engage the amygdala by visualizing the visceral reality of that night. Imagine the biting, freezing cold air hitting your face. Hear the haunting sound of the string quartet continuing to play their instruments on the slanting deck as the ship slowly tilts into the black water.
Oh, wow, that paints a picture.
Picture the desperate, tearful mothers saying final goodbyes to their sons. Imagine the profound, heart-wrenching bravery of passengers willingly giving up their safe spots in lifeboats so that strangers might live.
That is incredibly heavy.
Suddenly, you are not memorizing digits. You are feeling the tragedy, the profound loss, and the heroism. Your amygdala lights up like a fireworks display, and April 15th, 1912 is permanently burned into your architecture.
That genuinely shifted my emotional state just thinking about it. Let's harness that emotional weight for another vocabulary breakdown, because this perfectly connects to the word abandon and its closely related phrasal verb to give up.
Perfect timing for those words.
To abandon something means to leave a place, a thing or a person, completely and permanently, often in a highly difficult or dangerous situation. The captain ordered the crew to abandon ship. The musicians, however, refused to give up.
A powerful distinction.
To give up means to stop trying, to surrender to despair, or to cease an effort. Listener, I want you to connect the word abandon to a deeply personal, emotional memory right now. Think of a time you were forced to abandon a creative project you love because of lack of funds, or maybe a toxic habit you finally gave up for your health. Feel the frustration or the relief of that moment.
Associating the vocabulary with real feeling.
Tying the English word to your personal emotional history is exactly how you make the vocabulary permanent.
You are illustrating the exact transition we need to make here, moving from passive consumption to active emotional engagement. And that provides a seamless bridge to the next major phase of cognitive mastery, which is output.
Output. So up until this moment, every strategy we have discussed, attention, stories, spaced repetition, has been focused on taking information in. But the ultimate secret weapon of flawless memory is pushing information out.
I have to admit, to some, this seems counterintuitive. You are suggesting that we actually learn better and remember more by doing the talking rather than doing the listening.
Wait, I think you mean I am suggesting that, but yes, I am asking you to explain why.
Yes. It is believed by leading educational researchers that teaching is essentially remembering twice. The phenomenon is known as the generation effect. When you sit and read a book or listen to a lecture, you are acting as a passive receiver. The cognitive load is incredibly low.
We're just soaking it up, or trying to.
But when you are forced to explain that exact concept to someone else, you undergo a profound shift. You become a creator. You must retrieve the data from your memory, organize it into a logical, sequential structure, and translate it into your own unique words.
It takes so much more energy to teach.
This intense process forces your brain to identify gaps in your understanding and rebuild the knowledge from the ground up.
Okay, let's test this mechanism with a very common, highly useful C1 vocabulary word, procrastinate. To procrastinate means to intentionally and habitually delay or put off doing something that you know you should do, usually because it is difficult or boring.
We all do it.
We do. For example, you know you have a major English exam tomorrow, but instead of studying, you decide to scroll through social media for 3 hours. You are procrastinating.
Now, how do you apply the teaching method to solidify that specific word? You don't need a formal classroom, and you don't need an audience of students. You simply need to transition from passive reading to active generation.
So practically speaking, as soon as this deep dive concludes, I could walk into the living room, find my partner, and say, hey, I just learned this incredible English word, procrastinate. It describes exactly what you do when you delay taking out the trash every single week.
Exactly. You are actively using it in a relevant, slightly humorous context. And if nobody is around, the technique still works perfectly. Explain it to the mirror.
Or to my dog.
Or open your phone and record a quick voice note pretending you are teaching a beginner English student what the word procrastinate means. The physical act of vocalizing the concept, moving your jaw, vibrating your vocal cords, structuring the sentence is what solidifies the neural pathway.
I absolutely love that. Shifting from receiver to creator. Now, speaking of physically creating output, we absolutely must address what you call the save button of the human brain, because this next step involves a skill that modern digital society is rapidly losing touch with, much to our cognitive detriment.
You are referring to the physical act of handwriting. In our hyper-accelerated digital age, we type everything. We tap notes out on our glass phone screens. We hammer away on laptop keyboards.
It's just so much faster.
Typing is incredibly fast, but biologically speaking, it is far too fast. It is purely mechanical and uniform. Every keystroke feels exactly the same. Writing things down by hand with a physical pen and paper forces your brain to slow down.
Because you can't match the speed of speech.
Because you cannot write as fast as someone speaks, you are forced to synthesize, summarize, and comprehend the information before you commit it to the page.
It is a deeply physical, tactile experience. You are actually drawing unique shapes for every single letter, feeling the friction of the ink on the grain of the paper.
Yes, you are utilizing fine motor skills and creating a haptic feedback loop. When you physically write, your brain engages massive regions of the motor cortex and visual processing centers that remain completely dormant when you simply tap a piece of glass.
So writing literally activates more of your brain.
The sheer metabolic effort required tells the brain this data is important enough to expend physical energy on. Archive it immediately. Functional MRI scans consistently show significantly higher brain activation during handwriting compared to typing.
Let's visualize this process using a phenomenal C1 vocabulary word, resilience. Resilience is the psychological and physical ability to recover quickly from difficulties, trauma, or illness. It is a profound mental toughness.
Such a powerful word.
The related phrasal verb is to bounce back. If you fail an important certification exam, but you refuse to quit, study twice as hard, and pass it the next month, you bounced back. You demonstrated immense resilience.
So how would you save that?
Well, if I just hastily type that definition into a notes app, my brain deletes it in an hour. But paint the picture for me of how I should utilize the save button.
First, you acquire a physical, high-quality notebook, something you actually enjoy holding. You take a pen and you slowly, deliberately write the word, resilience. You write out the formal definition.
Okay, writing it down carefully.
Then you generate and physically write out a sentence. She showed incredible resilience by bouncing back after her startup business completely failed. And finally, you force a personal, emotional connection. I must build my resilience when I inevitably make mistakes while practicing my English speaking.
Making it personal.
By the time you finish writing that paragraph by hand, the combination of cognitive synthesis, emotional connection, and motor skill activation anchors the word incredibly deep within your mind.
So what does this all mean for individuals who need to store massive, overwhelming amounts of data? We have covered how to memorize words, daily lists, and historical dates. But how do professional memory champions manage to memorize the exact order of a shuffled deck of playing cards in under 2 minutes? Or recall thousands of random digits of pi?
We are stepping into the truly advanced architecture of the human mind now.
I am so ready for this.
This is undoubtedly the most fascinating and powerful technique in the entire cognitive arsenal. It dates back to ancient Greece and a poet named Simonides of Chios. It is formally called the method of loci, but it is far more commonly known today as the mind palace.
The mind palace. I've heard of that in pop culture.
This technique operates by hijacking the fact that the human brain possesses an incredibly robust, evolutionarily ancient spatial memory.
Spatial memory. You mean the brain's ability to remember where physical objects are located in a three-dimensional environment?
Exactly. You may not be able to remember the plot of a movie you watched 3 days ago, but I guarantee that if you close your eyes right now, you can perfectly, flawlessly navigate the layout of the childhood home you grew up in.
Yeah, that's true.
You know precisely where the front door is. You know exactly where the living room sofa was positioned. You know how the hallway turned slightly to the left before you reach the kitchen.
Oh, absolutely. It's uncanny. I can literally see the terrible, faded floral wallpaper in my childhood kitchen right now. I have been in that house for 20 years.
Your brain evolved over millions of years as a hunter-gatherer to prioritize locations for basic survival. Our ancestors had to remember exactly where the fresh water source was located, where the poisonous berries grew, and where the predators nested.
So locations stick forever.
Abstract concepts fade, but spatial geography is hardwired into the hippocampus. The mind palace technique exploits this natural superpower. You take the new abstract information you want to memorize, you convert it into bizarre imagery, and you mentally place those images in specific sequential locations along a route you already know perfectly.
Okay, we have to unpack this with a concrete, real-world example. Let's say I want to memorize the planets of our solar system in exact order from the sun. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune.
That is a perfect test case. We are going to construct a mind palace out of a typical familiar house. We will walk through it together, and we must make the imagery intensely sensory.
Okay, I'm following you.
First, you walk up to your front door, turn the handle, and step inside to the living room. Immediately, you see that your expensive living room rug is covered in a massive pooling puddle of liquid silver metal that has suddenly caught on fire. The heat is intense. That is Mercury, the scorching hot planet closest to the sun.
Okay, my living room rug is ablaze with liquid silver mercury. Got it.
Next, you walk out of the living room and step into the kitchen. The entire kitchen is completely filled with a dense, swirling, incredibly beautiful pink fog that smells overwhelmingly of expensive, sweet perfume.
Pink fog in the kitchen.
Venus is historically associated with the Roman goddess of beauty and love. Pink, sweet-smelling fog filling the kitchen.
Silver fire in the living room.
Yeah.
Choking on sweet pink fog in the kitchen.
You move down the hall and push open the bathroom door. Sitting directly inside your bathtub is a massive spinning globe, sloshing wet mud and ocean water all over your clean bathroom tiles. Earth.
A muddy, splashing globe in the tub. What a mess.
You walk out and enter the master bedroom. The mattress, the pillows, the floor, everything is completely buried under a thick, choking layer of rusty red desert dust. Mars, the red planet.
Red dust in the bedroom. Got it.
You cough as you step through the dust and walk out onto the bedroom balcony. Taking up almost the entire space of the balcony is a gigantic, bloated, striped balloon violently bouncing up and down. Jupiter, the massive gas giant.
Red desert dust coating the bed for Mars, and a terrifyingly huge bouncing balloon dominating the balcony for Jupiter.
You leave the balcony and head toward the staircase. Tightly wrapped all the way around the wooden banister of the stairs are massive, glowing, icy rings. Saturn.
Icy rings on the stairs.
You carefully walk down the stairs and step out onto the back terrace. Sitting frozen on a plastic lawn chair is a giant solid block of deep blue ice, physically shivering in the cold. Uranus, an ice giant.
Shivering blue ice on the terrace.
Finally, you walk across the grass to the wooden garden gate. As you pull the latch to open it, a massive roaring wave of dark ocean water violently crashes over your head. Neptune, the Roman god of the sea.
Okay, this is basically a high-definition mental video game. Let me see if I can walk the route backward just using the locations.
Give it a try.
I'm at the garden gate. That was the crashing ocean wave, Neptune.
Yeah.
I step back to the terrace, the shivering block of blue ice, Uranus. I walk inside to the stairs, the glowing rings wrapped around the banister, Saturn. I go upstairs to the balcony, the massive bouncing balloon, Jupiter. I walk into the bedroom, choking on the red dust, Mars there. Into the bathroom, the splashing muddy globe in the tub, Earth. Down to the kitchen, the sweet pink perfume fog, Venus. And out to the living room, the blazing puddle of silver metal, Mercury.
Flawless.
That is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
I didn't exert any traditional spelling effort to memorize the list. I just visualized walking through a house.
And because you anchored absurd, vivid imagery to a spatial map that your hippocampus already has permanently locked in, recall becomes nearly effortless. You can walk the route forwards, backwards, or instantly jump to a specific room.
It's like having a cheat code.
But there is a crucial caveat here. This brings us to another advanced requirement: active recall. You cannot simply build the mind palace once and lazily assume the architecture will hold perfectly forever without maintenance.
Right, because human beings are inherently lazy. We strongly prefer what you call the illusion of competence.
The illusion of competence is perhaps the single biggest trap in modern education. It occurs when you sit down with a textbook, grab a yellow highlighter, and casually reread your notes.
It feels like you're studying.
As your eyes scan the text, your brain says, "Ah, yes, I recognize this word. I know this concept." Recognizing information is fundamentally different from recalling it. Recognition merely means the answer is sitting right in front of your visual cortex.
But you couldn't produce it on a test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True, durable memory is the ability to pull that information out of the dark void when the book is firmly closed.
It sounds like the mental equivalent of lifting a dumbbell.
Yeah.
If I just sit on a bench and watch a YouTube video of a bodybuilder lifting heavy weights, my muscles aren't getting stronger. If I just passively reread my English vocabulary notes, I am not building any actual memory muscle.
That is exactly the biological reality. Active recall is the heavy lifting. You must close the book, close your eyes, and aggressively force your brain to retrieve the information without any hints. Let's demonstrate this with a powerful quote. Consistency is more important than intensity.
That is a profound quote, especially for language learning. So the illusion of competence would be me just reading that quote 5 times in a row, highlighting it, and feeling productive.
Right.
The active recall method means I read it once, then I physically turn away from the page. I stare at a blank wall, and I force myself to generate the words out loud. Consistency is more important than intensity. It genuinely feels harder. It feels like my brain is straining to find the words.
That feeling of strain, that mild cognitive discomfort, is the literal sensation of neural pathways strengthening.
Yeah.
It is the myelin sheath thickening around the axons in your brain.
So if it's easy, it's not working.
If your study session feels entirely easy and smooth, you are almost certainly not learning anything new. You must continuously test yourself. Ask yourself, can I explain the meaning of this quote? Can I recite it without peeking at the paper? That mental struggle is the forge where true memory is created.
We have constructed this incredibly robust system so far. We understand the foundational biology, the necessity of bizarre visuals, the power of narrative stories, spaced repetition, emotional amygdala tagging, teaching, handwriting, the mind palace, and the heavy lifting of active recall.
It is a complete cognitive framework.
But here is where the conversation takes a somewhat darker turn. because none of these magnificent tools will work if the environment of your brain is highly toxic. We need to talk about protecting the asset.
We do. The next crucial phase requires a deep understanding of what actually happens neurologically when you sleep, because society views sleep merely as passive rest, like powering down a machine.
That's definitely how I saw it.
In reality, sleep is a period of intense, active neuromaintenance.
That's fascinating because I always conceptualize sleep as just shutting the laptop lid to save battery.
Far from it. Imagine your brain is a meticulous, highly stressed librarian. Throughout your waking day, people are constantly walking in and just throwing thousands of random books and magazines onto her front desk.
Just piling it up.
When you finally go to sleep, specifically during slow wave sleep, the library essentially closes its doors to the public. The librarian finally has the silence required to process the massive pile on her desk.
What is she doing with it all?
She evaluates what needs to be physically moved into the permanent archives of the cerebral cortex and what is garbage that should be thrown into the incinerator. And her primary criterion for what to save is based heavily on the exact information you reviewed right before closing time.
Oh no. This means my standard nighttime habits are actively destroying my memory consolidation, aren't they?
Let me ask you, what exactly do you do in the 20 to 30 minutes before you close your eyes and fall asleep?
Like 90% of the modern world, I am lying in the dark in my bed, bathed in blue light, mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, watching random short-form videos, reading toxic political arguments on social media, and looking at funny memes.
Exactly. You are handing the librarian a massive pile of absolute garbage right at the exact moment she begins her archiving process.
I'm so guilty of that.
Let's say you studied your C1 English vocabulary diligently at 2 p.m., but at 11:30 p.m., you flood your hippocampus with 30 different rapidly moving videos and memes. The librarian looks at this final influx of data, sees that it was highly stimulating and the most recent input, and concludes, this recent visual data must be crucial for survival.
And what happens to the vocabulary?
And to make room for it, she casually tosses your hard-earned English vocabulary into the incinerator.
That is genuinely terrifying. I am actively sabotaging my own learning. So the fix here is relatively simple in theory, but requires immense personal discipline.
Very simple. You must curate the final input. Take the last 10 minutes before you intend to sleep to quietly review the specific information you actually want to retain.
So no screens.
Read over your handwritten vocabulary list. Take a mental walk through the mind palace you built. Read a beautiful, complex passage of English text. You are explicitly instructing the librarian on what to archive during the night. Then, put the digital device in another room and go to sleep.
Okay, let's unpack the final, vital piece of this system. Protecting the asset during the waking hours. And listener, I really need you to pay attention to this because this is the pervasive disease of the modern age. We're universally suffering from immense, crippling cognitive overload.
I want to speak directly to anyone listening who feels an underlying anxiety that their memory is failing them, that they are losing their edge. Your brain is not weak. It is simply cluttered beyond its biological capacity.
Cluttered is the perfect word.
Think of your working memory as a physical glass of water. It has a strict volumetric limit. It can only hold a certain amount of liquid. If you continue to pour water into it, the glass does not magically expand. It simply overflows, spilling water everywhere.
And modern society is designing systems to constantly, aggressively pour junk water into our glass. Let's say I have a very simple, mundane task. I need to drive to the grocery store. I make a quick mental list. Milk, bread, apples, soap, onions, just 5 items. That is a perfectly manageable amount of water sitting comfortably inside the glass.
But then let us examine the reality of what happens during the 10-minute drive to the store.
I get in the car, I stop at a red light, I instinctively grab my phone, I read 3 unread text messages from a group chat, I see a glaring push notification about a political scandal.
Pouring more water in.
I open an app and scroll through 5 rapid-fire, highly stimulating short videos. The light turns green. I turn on the radio and listen to a fast-paced advertisement for car insurance.
And with every single one of those digital interruptions, you are pouring more liquid into the glass. The cognitive load of the political scandal physically pushes the concept of soap out of the glass.
It just displaces it.
The rapid-fire videos completely displace the onions. By the time you actually walk through the automatic doors of the grocery store, you only remember the milk and bread. And then the self-criticism begins. You feel frustrated. You think, why is my memory so terrible?
It isn't terrible.
It isn't terrible. You simply buried your grocery list under an avalanche of digital junk data.
There is a fantastic modern English idiom that perfectly describes this phenomenon: living rent-free in your head. If someone or something is living rent-free in your head, it means you are allowing it to occupy your precious thoughts and your limited mental space without it providing any value or paying you any benefit in return.
Rent-free,
At
exact.
that angry political argument you read on social media, it is living rent-free in your head, that completely irrelevant celebrity gossip. Rent-free. You have to serve an eviction notice to this useless information.
You must practice intentional digital fasting. You must fiercely, unapologetically protect your attention in the exact same way you protect the physical security of your own home. You would never leave your front door wide open, allowing random strangers to walk into your living room and throw garbage on your floor.
Never.
So why do you leave your mind wide open, allowing algorithms and corporations to dump toxic digital trash into your cognitive space?
Wow. Protect your mind like you protect your physical home. That is a massive, paradigm-shifting takeaway. So what does this all mean? We have journeyed deep through the biological and psychological architecture of human memory. And now, as promised at the very beginning of this deep dive, it is time for the grand reveal.
It's time to tally it up.
We did not just hand you a few random study tips today. We have carefully, sequentially walked you through a massive, scientifically backed 12-step system for building a flawless, impenetrable memory.
12 distinct, highly actionable steps. We started with understanding the library of short versus long-term memory, moved to the 5-second rule of undivided attention, converting abstract words into vivid pictures, chaining them together with the story method, leveraging spaced repetition to beat the forgetting curve, utilizing the amygdala for emotional connection, teaching what you learn to become a creator, writing by hand to engage motor pathways, constructing a mind palace for spatial storage, performing the heavy lifting of active recall, directing the librarian by reviewing before sleep, and finally, protecting your cognitive glass from digital overload.
12 steps to absolute cognitive mastery. But wait, I certainly did not forget. I promised the listener a highly specific bonus trick at the very end.
Yes, the bonus trick.
You mentioned earlier that world-class memory champions use a manipulative psychological hack when they are forced to memorize something that is inherently aggressively boring. What is the trick?
It is the strategic, deliberate use of fake emotion. We have already established that the amygdala automatically saves highly emotional events. But sometimes in academia or your career, you have to learn something that is completely devoid of natural emotion, like a dry mathematical formula, a dense legal code, or complex tax regulations.
Stuff that just puts you to sleep.
In these specific cases, you must artificially manufacture and inject emotion into the raw data. The fascinating biological loophole here is that your brain actually has immense trouble differentiating between a genuine emotional response and an intensely, vividly imagined one.
Okay, I need a practical example of this. How on earth do I make basic geometry emotional?
Let's take the standard mathematical formula for the area of a triangle. Area equals 1/2 the base times the height. As text, it is completely sterile and boring.
Very boring.
Now let's apply the fake emotion protocol. Close your eyes and vividly imagine that you are starving. You have not eaten a single piece of food in 3 days. Your stomach is cramping in physical agony.
Okay, I'm starving.
Suddenly, a friend walks into the room carrying the most delicious, steaming, hot, greasy, cheese-covered slice of pizza you have ever seen, and the slice is shaped exactly like a triangle. They hold it out to you. But right as you desperately reach your hands out to take it, they violently chop it in half, give you a tiny piece, and throw the other half directly into the garbage. You only get half.
Oh, the absolute injustice of it, the profound betrayal.
Exactly. You must physically feel that exaggerated anger, the tragic, painful hunger. By actively attaching that fake emotional pain to the triangular shape of the pizza and the conceptual injustice of the word half, you permanently fuse the mathematical formula to an emotional state. The sting of the fake pain forces the amygdala to remember that the area requires the half.
That is hilarious, slightly traumatic, and absolutely brilliant, using fake emotional pain to bypass boredom. Listener, we have handed you the absolute keys to the cognitive kingdom today. You now possess the comprehensive 12 steps, plus the bonus psychological trick. But merely possessing this knowledge is not enough. You have to put it into rigorous practice. You have to stop operating as a leaky bucket.
Knowledge without immediate application is merely passive entertainment. Our goal is for you to fundamentally alter how you process and interact with the world around you.
And to prove that you are ready to take immediate action, to prove that you are moving from a passive listener to an active creator. I have a specific mission for you right now. I want you to go down to the comment box right now and write exactly this. I stay committed. Write it out to visually prove to yourself and to us that you are fiercely protecting your focus and actively evicting the digital junk currently living rent-free in your head.
It seems like a small task, but the physical action of typing or writing it out acts as a psychological contract. It signals to your neurobiology that you are actively adopting a new identity as a lifelong, highly effective learner.
And while you are down there in the comments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep this daily English practice going. We want to continue building this everyday English flow with you, exploring new concepts and expanding your C1 vocabulary.
Because the more you engage with the material, the more these complex concepts and this advanced vocabulary will permanently solidify in your long-term memory architecture.
I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on today. As we increasingly outsource our memories to our smartphones, letting our devices remember our schedules, our friends' phone numbers, and our personal photographs, we have to ask ourselves, if our memories are the very foundation of our identity and our personality, who are we becoming if we no longer biologically remember our own lives? It's a heavy thought, but one worth exploring. Remember how we started this deep dive, walking into a room and staring blankly at the refrigerator? Or shaking a stranger's hand and instantly losing their name to the void? You no longer have to live in that murky, frustrating, embarrassing landscape. You possess the architectural blueprint to build a magnificent, perfectly organized mind palace. The power is entirely in your hands, or rather, it is entirely in your attention. If you enjoyed this podcast, there are many more podcasts on my channel. Go check them out. We will see you in the next deep dive.